This is a quick disclaimer saying that this video, as well as all videos on my channel, are not intended towards a younger audience. Despite the fact that I make things from cartoons and video games does not mean that this channel is intended for a younger audience. 16 on up is my targeted age range.
Hey you! Yes, you. Would you like to learn how to make an Alastor staff, but you don't have access to a 3D printer? No problem. This video is for you. So, most Alastor staff tutorials I've seen on YouTube, 9 times out of 10 always start off with, now access this free base down below, download it onto your 3D printer, and then start printing. I don't know how 3D printers work. Anyway, most, if not all, but one video I've seen shows you how to do this, but you have to 3D print everything. So if you're someone like me who doesn't have a 3D printer or who has no access to a 3D printer whatsoever, then this is for you. Because I tried to look up things to try to get myself some ideas on how to possibly make this, because this is what I do every time I make a prop for myself. I look up tutorials if I can't quite figure out what I need to do to bring a prop to life. Yeah, none of those helped me. So I figured everything out on my own, and now I can show you all how to make one of these. It's pretty easy, actually.
So I started off with taking a water bottle that was a hair too long for my liking, so I just simply cut off the bottom and made it just a hair shorter. Gluing it with hot glue very carefully. I made sure that my hot glue wasn't too hot right then and there because, hot glue melts plastic. Then I proceeded to cover the entire water bottle with masking tape. It's so that way stuff could stick to the plastic a lot better. I then proceeded to take something called Black Magic Moldable Cosplay Foam Clay, but any kind of lightweight air dry clay will work for this. I rolled it out flat and then I covered the entire bottle with it. This is why I was adding masking tape to it so that this could stick better. As you can see, I realized that after adding the foam, it made the bottle a lot thicker than I intended it to be. So I simply cut the bottle open, took off a piece, glued it and taped it back together so that way I could recover it with foam and it not be as thick as it originally was. You couldn't really tell how thick it was, but after I did it, it like doubled its size. And I didn't want a thick microphone for Alastor. And as you can see, I got it to the thickness that I wanted it to. Now after that, I took a broomstick, which is what I'm using, but you can use a wooden dowel, a mop handle, whatever. And I started to cover it itself in masking tape. This is so that way paint can stick to it a lot better. As you see, I didn't cover a little gray part at the bottom. That is where the water bottle is going to go on. And then here I used the microphone to get the length of it so that way I could make the back of it and not make the back too short. I'm just looking at pictures of Alastor Staff right here and eyeballing my design. I just folded a paper in half, drew on one side, and then used my computer screen to do the other. If it was sunny outside, I would have held it up to a window. It's roughly about a teardrop shape with a flat bottom, so I was able to eyeball it. Right there, I was measuring and making sure I got the right height and everything, but I also started noticing something that I hadn't noticed before, but that's later. Here I am simply using a piece of cereal box cardboard and tracing the pattern onto it, and then doing that same thing again onto some thick EVA foam. Now mine just came from an air conditioner that we had installed, but you can find EVA foam anywhere. Now here I'm covering up the shiny plasticky side or the waxy side of the cardboard with more masking tape so that the hot glue and everything can stick to it a lot better. Now I was lucky enough to have my EVA foam already scored down the middle because it was meant to break in half, so mine could bend easily. If yours doesn't have that, just simply score it down the middle so that it can bend in half pretty easy, but don't cut it all the way. So here what I'm doing now is I'm taking two pieces of foam, one longer than the other, and gluing it down the middle of the cardboard. Because Alastor Staffs, the back of it, is not flat. It's kind of dome shaped, it's warped. So that's what I'm doing. The reason why the top piece of foam is a bit shorter than the bottom piece that I glued onto the cardboard is so that way the point of it is not too warped. I still want that to be a little flat. And I continue to use my microphone. I'm gonna call it the microphone. I continue to use my microphone to make sure I got all the sizes right and everything. And then here I'm taking more pieces of foam for the kind of like curved sides. So that way that side is not completely flat, but I don't glue it too close to the edges because the edges I want flat. And here I am simply gluing everything. So I figured you're not going to be able to see too well from that angle, so I want to show you what I was doing, as well as to show y'all something that I found out that I messed up on. First, let me show you what I'm doing. I did this I started on this side first. I haven't started on this one, but as you can see, this side is now more round and smoother. It's not perfect, but it's better versus this side. This side's coming up anyway, which is just flat like that. Just harsh curves and everything is just flat. And then this is more rounded. So what I'm doing is I'm just hot gluing down, and as you saw in the video, I'm taking, I don't know where it went right now, but I'm just taking something and rubbing it on the hot glue, and then I'm just holding it down like this until it dries, and I'm giving it smooth edges. Now, this thing. I hollowed it out. It's no longer round on the whole side. I cut it in half. I didn't hollow it out, it's been hollowed. I cut it out. Here's why. Something I really did not notice until just now was that Alastor's microphone sits flat against the back right here. It's not like 3D like whole, and I thought it was. But whenever I was doing research to make this template, I was noticing that it was flat, and I was like, oh, well, it's okay, I'll be fine. Yeah, no, I'm really glad that I noticed that now versus later on when it would have been far too late to fix it, because now, let's see if I can stand this up. I'm just gonna have this flat against it like this, which will be a lot easier when it comes to gluing and everything. I just fully thought that it was like fully rounded and then laid into it, but no, I didn't. I'm really glad that I noticed that now though, and it's not a bad thing. Haha, Windows jump scare. It's not a bad thing if you have your Alastor cane, microphone, staff, whatever like that. It's not bad. It's not a bad thing at all. And I'm not saying that what I was doing was a bad thing either. But I was thinking it was gonna be a little awkward to have it, instead of being flush against it like this, essentially it was going to be like this. So yeah. So now that I realize it's flat against it, it's a half shade basically. yeah, this is a lot easier and a lot better for me. I'm just really glad that I noticed that now and not later when it was too late. But all I really did was, if you remember, I cut this to make it smaller because it was too thick. I just took my box cutter, traced a line around it by eye, peeled off the black magic, and then cut it with my scissors so it's gonna be flush like this. So yeah, it's fine. It's a fix. It's an easy fix. Just if you get to this part of the tutorial before you make this, do this. Make a half shape. Don't make a full one like what I did. Cut the bottle in half and use half. Yeah. Anyway, back to this. I do this, and then we'll get on to the next part of the video.
So, yeah, the gluing technique didn't work. Well, it kind of worked. However, if you remember, I took masking tape and I covered this side of the cardboard. Yeah, well, the masking tape is coming up off of the shiny part of the cardboard. So what I'm doing is masking tape. This is the most I've ever used masking tape in any kind of cosplay build ever. So yeah. So what I'm doing is, it's a little tricky to see because it's white on white. I took the masking tape and I am simply folding it. As you can see, I'm cutting off pieces, folding it so that way it doesn't look jagged. Like you can see the edges here and here. As you can see, it's coming up. Yeah, so I do recommend gluing all that down like what I showed last night. However, just for an extra step, this. So what you're going to do is you're just going to take off a bit of masking tape like this. I'm going to cut it. You don't want it too big of a strip because this is a curved surface. This is curved. And it's a little tricky to get smooth stuff on curves. So what I'm doing is, I'm not worrying about the bottom right now. We're not going to see that. So just doing this, stick it on like that, and then cut about 3 notches. So flip it around, and you're just gonna snip and snip right there. And then you're gonna gently pull it, and like that, and again, pull one at a time, and then pull, and you're gonna kind of wrap it around the curves, and look at that. So yeah, do that, and then I'll come back. Ta-da! Oops. Did it! So all the edges are smooth, aside from that, don't worry about that. They're all smooth, this is pointed, perfect. Now in case you're starting to wonder, well what about texture-wise? If you're like me and you use foam, what about texture-wise? Don't worry about that. When we cover everything with Mod Podge before we paint everything, it's going to cover it, I promise. And same for this side. This is gonna, because this, this is just masking tape, so it's gonna peel up a little bit. Don't worry. If you cover it in Mod Podge, it's gonna act like paper mache almost, and it's gonna prevent it from peeling back. So, yeah. On to the next part. So now, time for that.
So what I went ahead and did before I started to make the little round part is I went ahead and glued the bottle onto the stick itself, so that way I'll know exactly how far up the circle parts need to be. And I burned myself with my hot glue while doing this, so I don't know if you can tell, but yeah, be careful with hot glue. And this took forever for the hot glue to dry because it was super hot and molted. And then I took more masking tape and covered up the plastic part of the bottle. It took me a few minutes to try to figure out how I wanted to do the circles, and I figured just take the rest of the foam that I had and cut out 2 circles as even as I could get it. My original thought was to cut out a little circle in the middle of it and slide them over the bottom of the staff and all the way, but I couldn't cut a circle quite big enough. So what I instead did was I just cut 2 circles and then cut them open to fix onto there. So the EVA foam I'm using has a sticky back to it, so I just stuck them together like that, and then I used hot glue to stick it to the rod itself, basically making it flat against the bottom of the microphone. Now for the bottom here, Alastor has like a simple little protruding thing at the bottom of his staff. So I just took a thin strip of EVA foam and glued it right flush against the bottom of my staff. Now it's time to glue the back piece to the plastic, which was pretty easy. I just very carefully traced the outline of the bottle with hot glue and stuck it on there and let it dry. Keep applying hot glue as I saw fit, as I saw the plastic exposed parts started melting. And here is about the halfway mark.
So yeah, I didn't realize how tall this thing was gonna be. I should have thought this was gonna make it taller. Why I didn't think of that, I don't know. I think Alastor Kane is supposed to be like just a hair shorter than him. Oh well. I'm 5'9", so this thing's pretty tall. However, when I'm in cosplay, I'm gonna be wearing some platforms that make me about 6'1". So it'll be like here, I guess. So yeah.
So now it was time to make the eyeball of the staff. So I just took my black magic again and I started to sculpt out a little eyeball shape. I actually realized that my eraser was the perfect length I needed it to be, so I measured it up against my eraser and I used my eraser to make sure it would fit on the staff itself. And so then I covered everything in 2 layers of Mod Podge. I didn't capture that, but then I started to paint everything. The Mod Podge was just to make sure that the foam and the masking tape wouldn't drink up the paint and make it look bad. And so then I started to paint on the red parts. I did end up covering all the parts that were going to be red in about 2 layers of white acrylic paint, so that way the red would really pop. And what I did was, to get clean lines, I used masking tape to tape the bottom of the staff where the foam meets. I don't recommend doing that because when I peeled it off, the black paint came off and I had to repaint certain areas black. But I used the same shade of red for the back of the staff as well as the bottom. And then here I'm mixing up a darker shade of red for the backing of where the microphone sits, because Alastor has a few different shades of red on his staff, so I wanted everything to be slightly different shades of red. And then right here I used a pencil and I made a very thin line where the white and the red paint will cut off from each other on the microphone itself, and then I mixed up another darker shade of red for the bottom of the microphone where the eyeball is going to sit. And I did mix up a lighter shade of red for the eyeball, I just didn't film myself painting that. And then using my black acrylic paint, I went over the line I drew again with the black and then added a bit of detail with the black paint, and then I glued the eyeball on. And that was it.
And this is the final result. It's all put together, all painted. I really like it. Something that I did end up adding that I didn't catch on camera was I added a black line around the eyeball. Originally, whenever I was making the eyeball, what I had wanted to do was I wanted to make a little line around it that had like some little eyelashes, quote unquote, some little spikes right here that I've seen in some fan art or actual things from the show and some cosplays that I've seen for this eyeball. But I tried to make that and it wasn't working too well. So I was like, it's fine. And then when I glued it on, I realized, you know what? I can still kind of accomplish that. Let me just paint around the eye, one little black strip, and it looks great. I added this little thing right there that Alastor has on his staff in the cartoon, just to make it look more cartoonish a little bit. I've seen a lot of cosplayers do this when they paint it. So I had really thought about making this part silver, or at least semi-translucent silver, just to give it a bit of realness to it. But when I tested out my silver paints on a tester, I realized none of them looked good. They would all basically end up streaky because they were too translucent, but you would see streaks on top of streaks. So I just ended up keeping it with white. And I like how it came out. It looks really good. Oops. Now the paint job is slightly a little around, like if you can see like here, up top and here. But I mean like from a distance, it's fine. You don't even see it. I see it because I made it. I'm the one who did it. But not bad for cosplay photos and stuff. You can't see it at all. So yeah. Something that I might end up doing later on is I might end up painting an upside down cross right here on the back, simply because this is going to be used for a nun Alastor costume and not like a real Alastor costume. So yeah, I never plan on ever making a real Alastor cosplay, just nun Alastor. But I like how it came out, and I hope this helped everyone out there who wants to make an Alastor staff but just can't do it because they don't have a 3D printer or they don't have access to a 3D printer like me. But yeah, this is it. It was fun. It took me about a week. In fact, today it makes 1 week that I started on it. It could be done quicker than that. It could be done like a half a week. I just didn't have the time to do it for like half a week, but this could all be done in like half a week if you need to, if not a week at most. So it's really good if you want to do this for like a con crunch or something, or oh, it broke, I need to refix it or remake a whole new one. Easy. I hope this helped everyone, and keep an eye out for other cosplay video tutorials I'll be posting in the future. Bye now!